Hi everyone, my name is Giovanna Proença and today we're going to learn C with Scratch, and the idea here is to learn arrays. So if you want to get the solution to these problems and also an ebook on how to become a developer in 2021, click on the description below. So the purpose here is not focusing on Scratch but actually in C, okay? This is kind of a transition between Scratch and C. And let's focus on this first example. So here we're saying when green flag clicked, we're going to add the number 10 to a list that has name array. So here we have our list, by now it's empty, but when we green flag clicked, now we have the number 10 as the first element. So how can we do this on C? So basically, remember, we have to start including our library, stdio.h, okay, and initializing our int main void function. Okay, so far so good. Now we're going to work on creating an array. So an array, we have to do the same thing as what we do when we are initializing a variable. So we have to say the type of the array. In this case, since number 10 is an integer, we're going to initialize our array list as an int, okay? And the name of our array will be array. Very creative, right? And we have here this empty square bracket. So this empty square bracket is saying what? So we're creating an array, okay? Because if we put this way, we would create a variable. So here we have to use the square brackets because we're saying that we are creating an array and not a variable, okay? We can leave this empty when we don't want to say the size of this array. So we can leave this empty. And then we're going to use equals, and we're going to open and close the curly brackets, and we're going to put the element inside. So since here we want to say just the number 10, so we're going to print square brackets 10, okay? And to print the value of array, we have to use printf, parentheses, %i as the placeholder, okay? And the value of this that this placeholder is holding is the array and the position of this element. Since we just have one element, it should be 1, right? But remember that when we are working with programming, we never use, we always start counting at 0, okay? So if you take a look in here, it's number 1, so in here it should be 0, okay? So let's make our problem, so make p, it's running, okay? So ./p, this is the element 10, okay? So the first element of our array is the number 10, and we're printing in here. Now we're going to do the next example. This next example here, we're going to do what? We're going to add the number 20, 30, and 40 in our array list. Okay, so we already have the number 10, but now we're going to add more 3 elements. So if we click in here, now we have 10, 20, 30, and 40 in our array. Okay, so let's work on this in here. So basically what we have to do. So here we're going to change the empty array for 4 because we're going to have 4 elements, okay? And let me erase this line. And now we're going to say the corresponding value for each element. So the array 1. So remember, we always start counting at 0. So the value of 1, it's our number 2 in the Scratch, okay? So it will be 20. Array position 2 will be 30, and array position 3 will be 40, okay? And how can we print every value in our array? So we can do this by doing a for loop, okay? You already have a video explaining how to do for loops in C. So we're going to do a for loop, and we're going to print every element in our array, okay? So we're going to say for int I equals to 0, and why 0? Because remember, we always start counting at 0, so the first element is position 0. I less than 4, okay, because our array has length 4, and I plus plus. Then we're going to printf the value of every element. So remember, placeholder and array, and what are we going to put inside? The I, right? Not the number, because the I will be changed in every iteration. So let's put a breakpoint in here, see what happens. So make p, it's running fine. Now we're going to use debug 50 p, and let's see what is happening in the code. So basically, if you take a look in here, let's wait a second because it's thinking about, but if you take a look in here, we have our array, okay, that has type int, and there is 4 elements. The first element on position 0 is the value 10, the element on position 1 has value 20, the element on position 2 has value 30, and the element on position 3 has value 40. So here we're doing our iteration for I equals to 0 until I is less than 4. Okay, so the first value of I is 1, and here we're going to print what? We're going to print the element on position 0 in our array. So what is the element on position 0? If we take a look in here, is the number 10. So we're printing 10 in here. Next iteration, we're going to have I equals to 1, and now we're going to print the element on position 1. What is the element on position 1? It's the value 20, okay? And so far, we're going to do this until we finish the code. Okay, so now that we have this, I changed it here to arrays with the 4 elements, okay? And in here we're saying until 4, sorry. And what the purpose of this part in here is to do what? To delete the position 1 of array. So if we click here, now we don't have number 10, we have 20, 30, and 40, okay? So how can we do this? To do this, we're going to use a tool that it's what? We're going to create a new array, okay? And this new array is going to have just 3 elements, not 4 anymore, because we're taking out the number 10 in here. So we're going to say it num, okay, and I'm going to put 3 here, so it's the new length of our array. And to populate this new array num, we're going to do what? We're going to do an iteration, okay? And in this iteration, we're just not going to take the first element. We're just going to take the element 1, 2, and 3. We're not going to take the element 0. So how can we do this? So for int j equals to 0, j minus 3, j minus 3, j plus plus, and why j minus 3? Because it's the length of our nums, okay? So what is going to be the value of num? So num on position j is going to be the value of array on position j plus 1. And why j plus 1? For example, num on position 0, it's going to be the value of array in position 1, okay? Num in position 1 is going to be the value of array in position 2. And num in position 2 is going to be the element of array in position 3, okay? And in here, we're not going to print array, we're going to print num, and we're going to do here until 3. So let's use a debugger and see what happens. So clear, make p, and debug 50p. Let's see what is happening in here. So basically, if we take a look, we have here our array, okay, and our array has 4 elements, 10, 20, 30, and 40. And we have our num here that have random numbers in here, but never mind. But we have here our 3 elements, okay? And now what do we want to do? We want to get 20, 30, and 40 and populate in position 0, 1, and 2 in our nums. So if you take a look here, what is the element of position 0 in nums? By now it's a random number, but we're going to take the value of element on position 1 in arrays. So what is the element of position 1? It's 20. So now if you take a look, num element position 0 is 20. And we're going to keep doing this until we populate num with 20, 30, and 40. Okay, as we can see in here, 20, 30, and 40. And now if we print, we can see here that we have 20, 30, and 40. So this way we can delete one position of array, but we have to create a new one, okay? So now, what if we want to insert the number 15 at position 2 in our array? So for example, if we have our array 1, 20, 30, and 40, and we want to insert the number 15. If we click here, we inserted this, okay? So we have a number 15 between 10 and 20. What if we want to do this in here? So we're going to use the same structure, okay? Now we have our arrays in here, 10, 20, 30, and 40. And now, if we want to add a new number in our arrays, we have to do the same thing. We have to create a new array, okay? So int num, and we're going to say that it's going to have 5 elements. Now it's 4, but if we add 15 here, we have 5 elements, okay? And we have to do an iteration. So for int j I equals to 0, for example, I less than 5, and I plus plus, okay? Why I less than 5? Because we want to put 5 elements. And we can do a condition. So the numbers that are before 15, they are the same, okay? So we can say if I less than 1, why 1? Because this is position 0, and we are going to add our element on position 1, right? So 20 is going to be position 2, as we did in here. So if I less than 1, we're going to do what? We're going to say that num I is equals to array I, okay? Sorry, it didn't change anything. And what are we going to do? So here we're saying that we want to insert 15 at position 2. So position 2 here would be our position 1 as programmers, right? So we can use a else if I equals 1. We're going to say num I it's equals to 15, okay? And what will be our else case? So our else case will be what? We would change the value, so we have to get the same thing as we did before, okay? But now the position 2 become position 3, the position 3 become position 5, the position 5 become position 4 become position 5, sorry. So we're going to do this. So num I it's equals to array I minus 1, okay? So we're going to get the previous value. So let's see what happened. I know it's complicated, but we're going to see in here. So make p and debug 50p. So let's see here what is happening in the code. So basically, if you take a look, we have our array, okay, that have 4 elements, and our nums that have random numbers in here, okay? We're going to initialize now. So what are we doing? We're doing a for loop, okay? So for I equals to 0 is the first element. So since I is less than 1, we're going to enter in this if condition, and the value of num in position 0 is going to be the same value of the element in position 0 in array. So it's going to be 10, okay? So if you take a look here, our 0 has value 10. Now we're going to increment the value of I. So I equals to 0, here's going to be I equals to 1. So is this condition going to be satisfied? No, because I is not less than 1, because I is 1. So let's see the next one. So I is equals to 1, yes. So we're going to enter in this else if, and now the element of position 1 in num array is going to be 15, okay, as we can see in here now. We're going to do the next iteration. So now our I has value 2, so this if condition is not satisfied. I is not equals to 1, so we're going to do else. And the value of here, so the element on position 2 in nums, so the element on position 2 here, is going to have the same value as the element on position 2 minus 1, that is the element on position 1. So here we're going to do what? If you take a look, has the same pattern that we have in Scratch, okay? And we're going to keep doing this until we have the whole number of nums. Here, remember, we have to use num, okay, because now we want to print this new value of num. So make p. If we run this here, it's going to have 10, 15, 20, 30, and 40, okay? So now we're going to do this next exercise, and the idea is to replace item 3 of arrays with 100. So what is the item 3? It's 20. When we click in here, 20 become 100, okay? So we're going to do this in here. So if you take a look, we're going to basically do the same as we did in insert, but instead of creating one new element on the array list, we can do just changing the value. So we don't need to create a new array to handle with this change of value here. So we're going to do what? We're going to do for int j equals to 0, j less than 5, that is the size of array, j plus plus, okay? And what we're going to do, we have to check what is the value of the element we're seeing, okay? And when I is equals to 2, why 2? 0, 1, 2. So when I is equals to 2, we're going to change to 100, okay? This is the place where we change to 100. So this is the condition, okay? So if I is equals to 2, we're going to do what? We're going to say array I is equals to 100, okay? And what is the else case? We're not going to change the value of the other number, so we're going to say array I equals to array I, okay? It's just a symbolic thing. So now let's see what happens. I put a breakpoint in there, so make P. Oops, array I, oops, it's array J actually. So here array J, every place I use I, it's J actually, okay? So let's save it and let's make P. So if J again, I use it I don't know why, so sorry. So make P, and now we can see debug 50 P, and let's see what happens. So when we take a look in here, we have our array that has value 0, 10, 1, position 1, 15, position 2, 20, position 3, 30, position 4, 40. So here we're going to do the check. So J has value 0, so this condition is not satisfied, right? So we go to the else. And we go to the else, our J will remain, our array will remain 10. Now, next iteration, we're going to check. So J is equal to 1, so since 1 is different than 2, we're going to the else, and the value will remain the same. Okay, as we can see here, array is still 15, the position 1. Now we're going to change the value of J, and J is equal to 2. So this condition is going to be satisfied, and we're going to enter in this if, and we're going to change the value of array J, that it's 2. Now it's 20, but when we click step into, it's going to change to 100, okay? And we're going to keep looping because now we're not going to change the value of the rest of the function. And when we see here, we have our 10, 15, 100, 30, and 40, the same as we have here in Scratch, okay? So now this next problem is one simple one because we are already printing this a lot of times, okay? But the purpose here is just printing the item 3 of array. So we're just going to print 100 here, okay? So how can we do this in here? We're going to take this for loop, okay? And I'm going to change here to 100. And how can we just print 100? We can just use printf. We already saw %i, and to go to the next line. And what is the value of 100 here? It's array on position 2, 0, 1, 2, okay? And we can say array on position 2. And when we make P and we run P, we have here 100, okay? And now let's go to the last problem, that is an if and else to check if the array contains the number 100, okay? So if array contains 100, we're going to print we have 100, and if we don't have 100, we're going to say we don't have 100, okay? So when we click here, it's going to say we have 100 because we have 100 in position 3, all right? So now how can we do this on C? It's kind of complicated, okay, but it's interesting for you to get the logic because you might face problems like this. So here we have our array, okay, that contains the element 10, 15, 100, 30, and 40. And how can we do this? So we can create a variable that is going to count how many 100 appears in the array. So count 100 will be the name of the variable, and I'm going to initialize as 0, okay? Then I'm going to do a loop, so int I equals to 0, I less than 5, why 5? Because the length of this array, I plus plus, oops. And in this for loop, I'm going to check if the element on position I in array is equals to 100. If it is equals, we're going to increment the count 100 variable, okay? And we're going to do this in every element of the array list on the array. And then we're going to check. So if count 100, oops, so if count 100 variable, it's different than 0, this this exclamation point equals it's like different than 0. So if the count is 100, it's different than 0, we're going to print what? If count 100 is different than 0, because we have 100 in the array list, right? So we're going to say we have 100. And else we're going to print we do not have 100. Okay? So let's see what happens in here. I'm going to put a breakpoint on line 7 and let's run the code. So make p and debug 50p. This is kind of complicated, but it's interesting for you to get the logic, okay? So by now we have our array that has elements 10, 15, 100, 30, and 40. And we initialize our count 100 with value 0, okay? Like we have in here. Now we're going to do a for loop, okay? So the first value of I will be 0 because we're saying here. And we're going to say what? So what is the elemental position 0 in array? So if you take a look in here, the elemental position 0 is 10. So since 10 is different than 100, we're not going to enter in this if condition. And we're going to loop again. Now the value of I will be 1. And so what is the elemental position 1 in our array? So elemental position 1 is 15. Since 15 is different than 100, we're not going to enter in this if, and we're going to do a next iteration. Now I has value 2, and what is the elemental position 2? Is 100. Since 100 is equal to 100, we're going to enter in this if condition, and we're going to change the value of count 100 to 1, okay? So now our count 100 has value 1. Now we're going to keep looping, so now what is the elemental position 3? It's 30, so we're not going to enter in the if. And the last iteration, we're going to get the elemental position 4, that is 40. So since 40 is not equal to 100, we're not going to enter in the if. And in the end, we're going to get out of the loop, and now we have to check. So count 100 is different than 0. Yes, because count 100 has value 1. So we're going to enter this if condition, and we're going to print we have 100. Okay? So these are the problems. I hope you enjoyed the content and see you in the next video. Bye bye.